Valerie, please, at least today, don't make a scene, the husband said calmly to his wife. His wife put the stack of plates on the table loudly with the words, "I wouldn't make a scene, but I think you understand the situation. We have been together for over 20 years, but every night you keep calling out the name of that—" "Don't you dare," Nathan interrupted his spouse. "Don't dare what? Calling your longtime love what she deserves? Why is that? I am your wife, the mother of your son, and only I have the right to decide what I should call the one you keep calling in your dreams. Don't you realize she's gone? She died a long time ago," his wife objected. Nathan knew perfectly well what was about to begin. His wife's drama was waiting for him. Valerie was not hysterical, but it was his fault, his unintended fault. 23 years ago, he had fallen in love. He fell in love so much that his mind went blank. She was not like everyone else. She was so fragile, so tender, almost ethereal. Nathan had never met anyone like her before. He was an athlete, constantly fought in competitions since childhood, was an excellent car and motorcycle driver, and dreamed of a career as a stuntman. Carol was different. She was afraid of heights, water, and even the sun because she could get a sunburn in just a few minutes. Carol studied music all her life and played almost all musical instruments. She dreamed of becoming a world-class composer and musician, and her grandmother was there to help her. Betty was a bossy woman and very pushy. She worked all her life as a carpool supervisor. She had a lot of useful contacts, a strong-willed character, and absolute arrogance over everyone. But she loved her granddaughter, though she didn't understand how she could be so frivolous. Betty's daughter gave birth to Carol. Betty suffered, feeling guilty. Maybe that's why she let Carol make her music. Her mother, Betty's daughter, also wanted to be a musician, but Betty forced her to go to the University of Economics. Apparently, the girl was broken by this constant mother's pressure and control. Within 6 months, she had changed beyond recognition. She was expelled from the university. Then it turned out that she was pregnant. Needless to say, Betty kicked her good-for-nothing daughter out. And then she got a call from the hospital. She was asked if she intended to take her granddaughter because her mother had died in childbirth. From then on, Betty cherished Carol as the most precious person in the entire universe. Betty took her granddaughter to the sea every year. The girl was destined for a great future. However, Nathan was not part of grandmother's plans. Nathan was madly in love with Carol, and the fact that they were forbidden to see each other drove him crazy. Carol loved him deeply too. They hid and often snuck out at night. Once, Betty went to the hospital for preventative treatment for an entire week. It was an unforgettable week for the lovers. They lived at Carol's, and the girl played him a melody she had composed for him. And then her grandmother came back. She made a huge scandal and reported him to the police. She accused him of trespassing and of harassing her granddaughter. Carol said in court that none of it was true and disappeared. He tried to find her, but to no avail. And Betty told him that if he didn't back off, she would do anything to get him in jail. He left. For 5 years, Nathan worked in the north, then came back and married Valerie. Valerie had a little boy. Her husband had left her. It all happened very quickly. The boy almost immediately began to call him Daddy, and he felt that he loved this little boy. He and Valerie never had children together, but he considered Ryan to be his son, and Ryan had probably long forgotten that Nathan had come to them when he was already born. Valerie sat in a chair and cried. In any other situation, Nathan would put on his jacket as usual and leave. He would always come back after 2 or 3 hours when Valerie had calmed down. Apparently, the tears were doing their work because she always met him calmly. But he couldn't leave tonight. Ryan is coming in 2 hours with a girl he plans to marry. That's why Valerie has been cooking since early today, and Nathan is trying to help her. He stepped closer to her and began to calm her down. Valerie, don't be crazy. Carol is long gone. You know that I love you. What can I do if some subconscious is sending me dreams from the past? And I call her in my dreams, not because I still love her, but because that's how the dream turns out. Nathan, don't you understand? Do you have any idea how I feel? His wife said with tears in her eyes. Well, what can I do? I just don't understand, the husband replied quietly. Valerie looked at him with tired eyes and said with confidence, Nathan, I want a divorce. As soon as we arrange the wedding and Ryan gets married, I'm filing for divorce. I can't take it anymore, you know? He stared at her in silence. Valerie didn't deserve this, and he didn't want it to be this way. Valerie, let's make it this way. We'll talk about this again, but later, okay? Right now, you and I have a lot of other things to do. I'm not ready to say anything right now. I don't want a divorce. But if you insist, we'll talk about it, the man replied. Valerie smiled softly, ran her hand over his cheek, and said calmly, Okay. Oh, I haven't put the meat in the oven yet. She hurried to put the meat in the oven, and Nathan exhaled in relief. The scandal seemed to have passed. Okay, I'll go to the dining room then. Set the table nicely. I'll try to make it look beautiful, her husband said with a smile. Valerie looked at him cheerfully and said, Well, go ahead. Please make sure that our son's girlfriend doesn't faint from this beauty. It's not a problem. We'll bring her to her senses, her husband replied, and left. He walked into the dining room and looked at the piano. Long ago, he dreamed that Ryan would study music. He even hired tutors and bought this piano. But Ryan had no ear for music at all. After years of torment, Ryan told his father, Dad, I can attend any classes, but please don't ask me to go to music classes anymore. I can't stand it, and I hate piano. Nathan was hurt, really hurt. He had hoped to hear that special melody composed for him by Carol someday. Nathan had not forgotten the melody, but he couldn't even sing it. But he was sure that if he ever heard it again, he would immediately recognize it. Only 10 years after Betty separated him and Carol did he learn that the girl had been sent far away to another city, to Betty's sister. A year later, when Nathan had left, she was allowed to return, but Carol refused. Her pride kept her from returning to her grandmother, and then at her aunt's, she got pneumonia and died. Nathan almost lost his mind then. But he was already married to Valerie, so he tried to hide his feelings and somehow survived the loss. He didn't go to Betty's or the funeral. Is everything done? Valerie asked her husband. They looked at the served table, the smell of meat wafting out of the oven. Well, yes, it looks nice, he replied. Valerie looked at him and asked him with a smile, What if we don't like Ryan's girlfriend? Nathan laughed. No, there's no way that could happen. First of all, I trust Ryan. I'm sure he wouldn't choose the wrong girl. Besides, it won't be us living with her, but Ryan. So cheer up, honey. Our son is all grown up. Okay, I'm going to go and change. I'm not going to meet them in pajamas, Nathan muttered, and headed for the bedroom. At that moment, the key in the lock turned. Oops, tell them I'll be right back, her husband added, and shut the bedroom door. Valerie headed for the front door with a smile. "Mom, Dad, hi, we're here!" Ryan's voice came from the entrance hall. "Hello," Ryan's girlfriend said modestly. Valerie saw the girl who was hiding behind Ryan. She had huge blue eyes, black, perfectly straight hair, and fear in her eyes. "Hello, pretty girl," replied Valerie. The girl blushed. Valerie smiled. She didn't expect to meet a girl who blushes nowadays. "Come in, please," Valerie said. "Mom, where's Daddy?" asked Ryan. "I'm here," replied Nathan, coming out of the bedroom. The girl's name was Lori, and she was so fragile. The tension relaxed a little at the table, but not for Valerie. She could feel her heart beating harder and harder, as if she could sense that trouble was about to happen. "So, where do you study or work, Lori?" Ryan's father asked the girl. Nathan looked at the girl with a smile. After all, he wasn't wrong about his son. Lori was good at everything. Beautiful, decent, and smart. "I'm still a student. I'm going to be a pediatric doctor. But I work part-time as a nurse on weekends, not because I need money, but to learn more," the girl replied modestly. It was late at night. Nathan and Valerie already knew that the girl lived with her elderly great-grandmother and did not ask any questions about it. They didn't want to make the girl feel bad. If she wants, she'll tell them why her life has turned out this way. But they all enjoyed this pleasant company. Lori already felt comfortable and could talk about everything. "Nice piano. Is anyone playing?" the girl asked. "No, we tried to teach Ryan, but failed," Nathan replied, regretfully. The girl looked at Ryan's parents and asked, "Can I play?" Ryan looked at the girl in surprise and muttered, "Do you also play the piano?" "I play a bit," the girl replied modestly. She carefully opened the fallboard, sat in the chair Ryan had pulled up to her, hesitated for a moment, and began to play. Nathan instantly went pale. He felt as if he was short of air. A cold sweat covered his forehead. Only when the melody ended did Valerie notice his condition. She rushed to him saying, "Nathan, are you all right?" Lori rushed up to him too. "Ryan, open the window and get some water," the girl addressed her fiancé in a commanding tone. At this point, Valerie rushed into the kitchen and quickly returned, holding the heart pills in her hand. Nathan pulled her hand with the pills away and turned to Lori in a weak voice. "Lori, tell me, was your mother's name Carol?" Lori looked at Nathan in surprise, then at Ryan. "Yes," she replied. "And your great-grandmother is Betty?" the man added. "Yes, she's very old, but she's still very active. Do you know my family?" asked Lori in surprise. Valerie went pale, turned and walked away to the window. She was silent for a minute, and then asked without turning around, "Lori, tell me, when's your birthday? When were you born?" Nathan looked quickly at his wife and covered his face with his hands. He did a quick calculation in his head and pulled his hands away from his face. "Valerie, what should we do?" He turned to his wife. "So, Lori's your daughter," his wife said in response. Ryan stiffened with horror. He looked at Lori, and then at his father, and the girl turned pale and said quietly, "Oh, please no, it can't be." It took Nathan a while to understand what she was thinking. The girl was already in the entrance hall, putting on her shoes, but he rushed to her to stop her. "Lori, stop. Ryan is not my biological son, so there's no threat to your love. Unless your grandmother... But I think we can handle that." Lori looked at Ryan, frightened. "How do you know my great-grandmother doesn't like Ryan?" the girl asked in surprise. Your great-grandmother doesn't like anyone, the man replied. At this time, Valerie came out to the hallway and said in a calm tone, I guess we should all sit down at the table now. Nathan, you should tell our kids everything, though I'd be very interested to hear this story too. He sounded calm, only now he realized that Carol was really gone, and that he didn't need to think about her. He needed to think about Lori, Ryan, and Valerie. He was talking, and Lori was crying, quietly. Valerie put her arms around her, pulled her close, and the girl snuggled into her chest. Ryan sat silent, only clenching and unclenching his fists. Mom never told me about you. I probably wouldn't remember, but she always told me you were very kind. My great-grandmother adopted me when I went to school. Since then, I've never been to my mother's grave, Lori muttered. Valerie suddenly said, Well, let's go there. Lori really needs it. Nathan, I think you need it too. You know, to say goodbye or something. Ryan looked at his mother in surprise. He had never seen her so determined. Mom, it's too far. So we should take a plane, the woman said confidently. 24 hours later, they were standing at a small monument with an old picture of Carol on it. Nathan wanted to cry. He felt sorry for Carol and for Lori, but at the same time, he felt much better now. The longing for the person who was no longer there was going away. Everything was ready for the wedding. Lori's great-grandmother had strictly forbidden marrying Ryan, but Lori had no intention of obeying. She was adamant about it. Grandma, I will marry him, and I will be very happy. You can't separate me from Ryan as you separated Nathan and my mom. Betty looked up at her and said, How do you know about Nathan? It doesn't matter, the girl said. He broke up with her, left her pregnant, her grandmother added. That's not true, Grandma. He loved her, and she loved him. And we went with him to Mom's grave this weekend, the girl muttered. But her grandmother didn't say anything. They never talked about the wedding again. Lori only came home to cook, do laundry, and clean the apartment. Betty, in spite of her age, could do everything herself. But then it would seem that Lori had abandoned her, and the girl didn't want to abandon the person she cared about. And so the wedding day came. Valerie looked at the newlyweds. Tears were about to roll down her face. But then her husband hugged her and said softly, Valerie, have I told you that you are the most beautiful, the wisest, and the best woman in the universe? Valerie answered him, smiling, No, you didn't. Did I tell you that if I could go back in time, I would marry only you and no one else? Her husband added. No, you didn't, she replied again. Everyone congratulated the newlyweds, and Valerie pointed to someone for Nathan. He saw an old woman walking toward the newlyweds with a cane and flowers. She proudly kept her posture flat. There was no doubt it was Betty. No way, Nathan was surprised. 10 minutes later, the old woman approached Nathan and Valerie. At first, she stood silent, but then she began to get down on her knees with the words, Forgive me, Nathan, and you forgive me too. Nathan didn't let her get down on the floor. Together with Valerie, they sat the woman down in a chair. And Nathan said, Betty, it's been many years since then. Everyone makes mistakes. But now have fun. It's a wedding. The old woman smiled, wiped away the tears that came again and again, and looked at the newlyweds. At this time, Valerie snuggled up to Nathan and asked quietly, Have I ever told you how much I love you?